Hello, and welcome back to the second part of the information contained within the 41st harmonic, which is the 37th gene key, or codon 37. This will be the first harmonic in the 9th harmonic run. Now, the videos here are going to be separated into 4 parts. I guess we can say 5 because we just had one, and that was the introduction to this very content here. So the information is going to be separated into the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi. Now, before we kind of embark on the journey here, this amazing information, I really want to give credit to Richard Rudd, the writer and I believe channeler, compiler of this amazing material brought forth in this book known as The Gene Keys. And I deeply empower, invite you, and suggest that if this body of work is new to you, or even if it's not, that you go on the internet somewhere and order a copy so you have your own reference for the deeper work. I have a digital copy of this particular material, and I bring it forth here because I find it's really nice to be able to follow along as I'm reading this transmission to you. I'm going to be breaking it up, and I'm going to be doing some of my own commentary on the things that become relevant during those times. So I encourage you to support this work of your own accord. Okay, so this whole session, 5 total videos, the next 4, one's going to be the shadow, one's going to be the gift, one's going to be the siddhi, and then the last one is most likely just going to be a general commentary on the frequencies that moved through this transmission. Now, one thing I really want to share is as we're going through these type of work, there are different ways we can playfully embody cycles. And while this system was not necessarily intended to be a cyclic or calendrical based system, a synchronometrical based system tracked in days, I've devised a way to be able to do so. And it kind of goes like this. And this is also why it's split up into the different episodes. First episode, first day of your harmonic. The harmonic is always red, white, blue, yellow, or east, north, west, south. And there's 5 of those in a harmonic run. So in each harmonic, I've devised a little way of the first day in the east, in that red energy, we engage the shadow. In the second day, the air energy, that north energy, we engage the gift. In the western energy, that water energy, or that western energy, we engage the siddhi. And in that southern or fire energy, last day of the harmonic, we engage kind of like a matrix of it all. It's all just kind of present. We've like embodied the 3 phases, and now it's like, okay, it is us now. Oh wow, this is cool. It is us. So we're taking the gene keys work here, and we're allowing for it to come into an embodiment cycle that is in harmony with the Tzolk'in and all the cycles that are complementary to that great work. Okay, let's get into it here. This 37th gene key, family alchemy. This 37th shadow of weakness. The real pole shift. As humanity gradually begins to move out of the astrological age of Pisces and enter the new age of Aquarius, we are experiencing a shift in the emphasis of the global archetypes that imprint us as a species. The 37th gene key, and particularly its shadow frequency, have marked the age that we are now leaving. Those with an eye for occult information will perhaps recall the number 37 as being the number of Christ, taken from Gematria, the ancient Hebrew system of alphabetical numerology. We are moving out of the sphere of the specific mythology surrounding Christ and into the sphere of the third aspect of the sacred Trinity, whose new mythology is based upon the great feminine archetypes of synthesis. That does not mean that the power behind the Christ myth will in any way diminish as we enter this new phase of evolution. What will change is our understanding and interpretation of the myth as its hidden aspects finally reveal themselves. This process ushers a flood of new mythic feminine images and archetypes into the collective consciousness. I just want to comment on this, how empowered this helps me feel as a transgender woman, as someone who is embodying their woman but wasn't born that way. I was not born in a woman's body. And so my journey outside of this body of knowledge, which has been complemented deeply by the dream spell, by the 1320 works, by the Mayan calendar, and all those associations, have allowed me to really hone in on the woman that I am, and to show up in that way and live within this incarnation and challenge those rules that attempt to define me as something else. And in there, I have found a deep new power in surrender, in the tenderness of who I am. So I just feel really inspired here about the first energy of where this is going. The 37th shadow is the shadow of weakness. Weakness, as we shall see, is nothing but a projection of the male psyche, onto the female psyche. As in the West, women have been viewed up until recently as the weaker sex. However, what appears to humans as weak is actually something that we cannot yet understand. We may see this enacted even in the externals of the Christ myth itself, in which one man surrenders to forces that finally overpower him. Naturally, it is the inner meaning of the myth that holds the real key, for it is only in the sacrifice and the subsequent resurrection that one finally comes to understand the hidden nature of Jesus' actions. Much about this 37th gene key therefore concerns the nature of a force that is perceived as weak, but that inevitably shows itself to be the opposite. The 37th shadow represents the inequality between yin and yang forces on our planet. The natural tendency of evolution has been to favor the physically stronger at low frequencies. Our genes know no other reality than the survival of the fittest. However, we have now reached a stage in evolution in which physical strength no longer governs our future direction. That future direction lies wide open for anyone, regardless of sex or strength. What we used to perceive as weak or strong is totally changing, even reversing. Those who thrust themselves to the top of the hierarchy through brute strength, turning off the internet there, the 37th shadow represents the inequality between yin and yang forces on our planet. The natural tendency of evolution has been to favor the physically stronger at low frequencies. Our genes know no other reality than the survival of the fittest. However, we have now reached a stage in evolution in which physical strength no longer governs our future direction. That future direction lies wide open for anyone, regardless of sex or strength. What we used to perceive as weak or strong is totally changing, even reversing. Those who thrust themselves to the top of the hierarchy through brute strength and subversion are losing their power. And those who hold a vision of synthesis based on self-transcendence are gaining more power. In this way, the world is transforming. The 37th shadow is undergoing a major mutation throughout humanity that will only build in speed and frequency as we move beyond its old boundaries and definitions. It is because of this mutation that the entire social structure of our civilization is crumbling. Here in the West, the traditional family unit is experiencing a natural demise, and at such times, great social change and unrest is much in evidence. Because of this inner rebalancing within the human psyche, the fabric of our society is being forced to change. The repressed feminine side of humanity is rising up to the surface once again, and this is changing the basic patterns of the traditional roles for men and women. This uprising of the yin force is actually beyond gender, but is also confused by gender. Many women today are under the impression that the time for women is coming and the time for men is over. This attitude is simply another form of the 37th shadow, which always overemphasizes one aspect of the polarity. The true definition of weakness can be seen when the feminine principle is witnessed serving the masculine. I definitely agree. Principle, which is how the world has evolved and survived up until this point. Wherever you see the submission of a female to the male, you are seeing the 37th shadow in action. And it can result in only one phenomenon: exhaustion. The 40th shadow and programming partner of this 37th gene key. In the way our societies are currently structured, many women may feel impotent, financially dependent on men, on account of having to stay at home or bring up children. Of course, there is always the exceptions to this, but it is a general truism. The pole shift that is upon us will see the reversal of this tendency, so that the masculine serves the feminine. One of the modern reactions to this is in developed societies, can be seen in the large numbers of women having to go out of the home to work, usually leaving the children in some form of care or institution. Such a phenomenon can only create more division in the world, since the ones who suffer in this are always the children. This 37th shadow of weakness manifests both through men who cannot see holistically and women who try to redress the problem in the only way they know how, through entering the male world of hierarchy and competition. All such social issues as these invoke strong emotional reactions from men and women, as do the same issues when connected to religion. There can be no answers to these imbalances from the human mind. They are simply a sign of the transitional times that we are living through. Because of the emotional charge between the yin and the yang, between men and women, to even discuss such issues arouse huge hidden tensions and opinions. In this respect, one of the great signs of the 37th shadow is your identification with your gender in the first place. The real issue is one of yin and yang, one of an imbalance between archetypal forces, not between their manifestations. There are always exceptions to the general rules, so that here is always room for individual uniqueness. One of the greatest signs of the 37th shadow is your identification with your gender. Mind you, I find it very empowering. The mutative energy moving through this 37th gene key is also bringing an end to many other structures that have been a part of human civilization for so long. One of these structures is organized religion, which is essentially a male-oriented phenomenon based upon division and worship. The masculine left hemisphere of the brain divides in order to understand, whereas the feminine right hemisphere grasps the fundamentality of unity that is always and already present. This movement from worship to embodiment is such a profound transition for humanity because it cannot easily be understood through the mind. The shadow of weakness is actually a complete fabrication of the mind. We need these external crutches only as long as we perceive ourselves as weak without them. The moment we drop the crutches, we will come to see that we had strong legs all along. The essence of the dilemma of the 37th shadow is seen most clearly through the imbalance with the individual. What we fear most deeply through the 37th shadow is lack of support, because our frequency does not allow us to feel a part of the whole, and therefore supported by the whole, we only give with the assurance that we will receive something back. This is the foundation of social economics and is the root, and its root is fear. What we don't have access to at this shadow frequency is the feeling of deep trust in the collective. We don't know that when we give from our heart, we will receive far more in return from somewhere in the collective energy field. Because we cannot anticipate how this energy might return to us. We do not trust it. Consequently, you can see that when you allow your mind to lead your life, you create weakness in the world because you sever the chain of support that exists naturally between all beings. Thus, it is the human heart and its ability to grasp the holistic essence of life that our true collective future lies. In an individual human being, this change translates as the mind serving the heart. And now for the repressive and reactive natures of the shadow frequency of the 37th gene key or codon, which is the first phase of the 41st harmonic, which is the first harmonic of 5 in the 9th harmonic run, which is the throat chakra. Repressive nature over sentimental. When the 37th shadow is repressed, it tends to manifest through the inauthentic giving. These are people who are ruled by their emotions rather than their hearts, and they have often believed that the two are the same. They repress their own fears through a dreamy mentality that may speak great words about humanity, but then lacks the inner strength to take a stand for itself. These are the people who, as victims of their own emotions, give the human heart a bad name. Whereas the heart is strong and fearless, the emotions can be fickle and overwhelming. Such people hide behind and within their emotions, which blind them to the deeper truths inside them. They have a tendency to over-process at the emotional level, which makes them draining for others to be around. The deepest irony is that these types of people are actually addicted to emotional states as a means of repressing their deeper fears. The reactive nature, cruel. The reactive nature produces its own fears out in the world, where it sees only inequality. Out of this core belief, these people become hardened around their hearts, until they entirely forget what love feels like. As the polarity to the repressed nature, these people tend to see others as over-sentimental and will take advantage of their good nature. Out of these two patterns, the repressive and reactive, our current civilization is created. Only those who are no longer victims of their own or others' emotions can break the victim/abuser pattern lying at the heart of our communities. These people, who we perceive as cruel, need willing victims in order to rise up in the community. Once someone takes a stand anchored in the heart, these abusers are the first people to crumble. Now, that is going to encompass the first section, the shadow section of our harmonic here. 41st harmonic, the 37th gene key. Stay tuned. Also the first day. Stay tuned for the second day, the second part of the gene key, second part of the harmonic, which will be the gift.